Hello friends, welcome to my channel Grammarian Bhai, and today let's solve Act 3 Scene 2 of Julius Caesar of class 10 from Morning Star publication. So first let's deal with the MCQs. So the first question of the MCQs is, after Brutus' speech at Caesar's funeral, what do the citizens of Rome offer to do? So here option B is correct, to crown Brutus as king. Second, according to Antony, what would the people of Rome do after reading the will? So here option B is correct, they will avenge his murder. Next one, number 3, whose blow was the most cruel to Caesar according to Antony? So it's option B, Brutus. Number 4, how does Antony describe Caesar's wounds? Here option C is correct, poor dumb mouths. Number 5, Brutus in his funeral speech appealed to, here option C, the Roman citizens' self-respect. Next, number 6, which of the following reasons did Brutus give for killing Caesar despite of his friend? So here option C is correct. He loved Rome more than Caesar. Number 7, for whom did Antony use the words honorable men in the funeral speech of Caesar? So here option A, all the conspirators. Number 8, who has been referred to by Mark Antony as Caesar's angel? So it's option B, Brutus. Number 9, who said, I have neither wit nor words nor worth? So it's option D, Antony. So now let's discuss the contextual questions. So the first extract, you go through by the extract. Let me directly deal with the questions and answers. So the first question of the extract 1 is, where is Brutus? Whom does he request to be patient, and on what occasion is this speech made? What was the purpose of speech? So the answer is, Brutus is in the forum at Caesar's funeral. He requests the crowd of Roman people to be patient, and this speech is made on the occasion of Caesar's funeral. The purpose of the speech was that Brutus explained the reasons for the murder of Caesar. He said that he had killed Caesar to liberate the Romans from his evil ambitions. Second question, how important was honor for Brutus? Give one example to justify your answer. In what way did his commitment to honor lead him to the present crisis? So the answer will be, for Brutus, moral values are more important than love for another, or even love for one's own honor. He was a man who truly believed that one could sacrifice anything for the love of his country and countrymen. Hence, he tells the people of Rome that he loved and honored Caesar for his bravery, but he killed him because he was ambitious. Therefore, the crowd, after listening to his speech, wanted to crown him as a king. Next question, number 3. Hear me for my cause. What was his cause? Were his motives genuine? How can you justify your answer? So the answer will be, Brutus explains to mob that he had very strong moral reasons for killing Caesar. He tells them that he loved and honored Caesar for his bravery, but he murdered him because he was ambitious. His motives were genuine since he was a virtuous man who never deviated from what he judged to be the path of his moral duty, and so he genuinely believed that he was doing the right action in killing Caesar. Next question. What was the reaction of his listeners in the beginning as well as at the end of the scene? How did the change in their attitude come about? So the answer will be the mob listened quietly to Brutus because they respected his honesty, dignity, and upright attitude. They felt satisfied with the reasons he gave them and were impressed with his calm and dignified manner. They hailed him as a hero and even wished to crown him. But at the end of the scene, the same mob turned against Brutus and other conspirators. The change in their attitude took place because of Mark Antony's speech. Next question, number 5. Give the meaning of censure me in your wisdom. Who passed censure on him? In what way has this changed the course of action in the play? So the answer will be censure me in your wisdom means to judge him with their sense of reason and knowledge and wisdom. Mark Antony passed censure him. People of Rome were influenced by Mark Antony's speech later because his speech appealed to their emotion. So people judged themselves, and this changed the course of action in the play and rose against the conspirators. Next, extract second. And the first question of extract 2 is, why does Brutus intend to depart alone? Why are the listeners left behind? Which error of judgment made by Brutus is revealed by his instructions to the listeners? So the answer will be the public is on the side of Brutus and the conspirators, and they do not want to hear Antony. But Brutus persuades them to stay and listen to Antony's speech, who had his permission to speak. Brutus believed that Antony was sincere to him and meant no harm to him and would perform the last rites. So he left alone, requesting people to listen to Antony's speech. Brutus made wrong judgment by allowing Antony to speak to the crowd. He trusted Antony and believed in his sincere friendship. Next question. Give the meaning of do grace to Caesar's corpse and grace his speech. It means that to pay respect to Caesar's dead body as well as to Antony's speech dealing with Caesar's glory. Second one, not a man depart. It means that nobody will go away from here. All must listen to the speech of Antony, except Brutus will depart from here. Next, number 3, what explanation had Brutus given in his speech of the murder of Caesar? What was the reaction of his listeners? So the answer will be Brutus explained to the crowd that he had killed Caesar as a moral duty because Caesar wanted to rule over Rome like a tyrant. He said that he had done nothing wrong, and anyone who did not want to become a slave, who was not wicked, who loved his freedom, and who was Roman, would have killed Caesar like Brutus. He felt that the people of Rome would have suffered under his cruel absolute rule, and so, for the love of Rome and his countrymen, he killed Caesar. People, after listening to Brutus, hailed him as a hero and even wished to crown him as a king. Next question. Who has given Antony permission to speak? Give any two conditions under which Antony is allowed to speak. So the answer will be Brutus has given permission to Antony to speak to the audience. Two conditions are: first, Brutus trusted Antony and believed in his sincere friendship, so allowed Antony to speak to the people. Second, Brutus wanted that Antony, who was Caesar's best friend and should be allowed to perform his last rites and ceremonies according to the Roman custom. Number 5. State which of Caesar's glories would Antony refer to in his speech a little later. What does he want to achieve by his speech? So the answer will be Antony refers the following glories of Caesar a little later. First, Antony proved that Caesar had been a great warrior. He brought many captives home to Rome. Second, he further added that Caesar did not make himself rich by keeping all the wealth, but shared with all the Roman people. He praises Caesar that Caesar was sympathetic and kind person. When the poor cried, he also cried with them. He even thrice refused to be a king when he was presented. Antony waits to win the heart of people by his powers of verbal manipulation and eloquent oratory. He appeals to the emotions and sentiments of his audience and finally gets the control over the crowd. He had excited the mob to a revolt. Next extract, number 3. The first question of extract 3 is: as Antony ascends the platform to speak, what did the citizens feel and say about Caesar, Brutus, and Antony? So the answer will be: as Antony ascends the platform to speak, the citizens felt and said about first Caesar. He was a tyrant, therefore he was killed. They felt that they were lucky that Rome had got rid of Caesar. About Brutus, people appreciated his deeds and praised him. They wanted to take in a triumphal procession, as well as wanted to crown him as a king. About Antony, people stayed and listened to Mark Antony since Brutus had requested them to listen to him. So, for the sake of Brutus, they were obliged to listen to his speech. Second one, why did the citizens stay behind to listen to Antony? In what way does Antony repel their suspicion in the beginning of his speech? So the answer will be: the citizens stayed behind to listen to Antony because Brutus had requested them to stay and listen to his speech. Antony adopted a humble and apologetic tone in the beginning of his speech, and very cleverly he praised Caesar indirectly and reminded the audience of his greatness. He also addressed to the mob as friends and appealed to their emotions for their dead hero. Next question, number 3. Which evil which Caesar is said to have done, lives after him. Give two examples of the good done by Caesar. So the answer will be evil deeds done by men remains in the memories of the people. Antony says that Caesar's demerits would survive in the memories of the people, but his qualities, his goodness, and his greatness would be buried along with his corpse and be forgotten. Two examples of the good done by Caesar are: first, he brought stability back to Rome. Second, he made life easier for the poor. Next question: why does Antony say the noble Brutus? Why does he use the expression? If it were so, why couldn't he be frank in his remarks? So the answer will be Antony knows that it would be foolish to praise Caesar directly in the beginning. So he calls Brutus and the conspirators noble and honorable men. He uses the tactics of indirect accusation on the conspirators and especially on Brutus. Antony could not be frank in his remarks because, ironically, he wanted to incite his listeners until they reflect and regarded Caesar's death as a cold blooded murder. Next question, number 5. Why do you admire Antony at this juncture? State briefly how he dealt with the crisis he found himself in. So the answer will be I admire Antony at this juncture because when he started speaking, he knew that his audience was on Brutus' side and hostile to him. So he started his speech not by praising Caesar, rather continued where Brutus had left. He shrewdly praises Brutus and calls him noble and honorable man, knowing that at that moment Brutus was the public's hero. But slowly and systematically, his bitterness becomes more evident with each ironical repetition of the word honorable. By the end, the audience understood that it meant dishonorable. He even indirectly praised Caesar and mocked at the intelligence of the murderers. He adopted a humble tone, cleverly disguises accusations, and brought emotions in the heart of the public, and finally excited the crowd to a revolt. Next, extract number 4, and the first question of extract 4 is: which testament is referred to by Antony and who are referred to as the commons? Why does Antony not want to read the testament? So the answer will be Antony is referring to the written document of Caesar that Antony had found it in Caesar's private room. The commons are the common people of Rome. Antony does not want to read the testament because he wants to arouse people's curiosity on it. He wants to create the sense of expectancy and suspense among the people. Next question: give the meaning of bequeathing it as a rich legacy unto their issue. So the answer will be bequeathing it as a rich legacy unto their issue means that to leave something priceless inheritance to be given to their children. So here it is through his written document, Caesar has left the priceless inheritance for all the people of Rome. Next question, number 3. Mention two of the purposes why the commons would dip their napkins in Caesar's blood and begged a hair of his. Why is the blood of Caesar said to be sacred? So the answer will be the two purposes for commons would dip their napkins in Caesar's blood and beg a hair of his are first, knowing the greatness of Caesar that he had left 75 drachmas for every Roman citizen. Second, in Caesar's will it is mentioned that Caesar has left the priceless inheritance for all, such as his private roads, groves of trees, orchards, trees on the side of river Tiber, even the common pleasure ground to walk and refresh for the Romans. The blood of Caesar is said to be sacred because he loved Rome and its people and left the priceless inheritance for all his children to whom the conspirators murdered him mercilessly. Next question, number 4. Besides the testament, which other items does Antony show later to the commons? How does that incite the commons? So the answer will be besides the testament, the other item shown to the commons by Antony are he shows the cloak of Caesar which he was wearing. He also shows the wound which the conspirators have made by stabbing Caesar mercilessly. He also shows Caesar's dead body wrapped his mantle around his face, just laying by the base of Pompey's statue. Next, number 5. State briefly how Antony cleverly played on the emotions of the common people and show how they reacted as he desired. So the answer will be Antony was an astute judge of human nature and understood well the mob psychology. He was also a shrewd politician and great orator who knew how to manipulate the emotion and the sentiments of the people. So, through his powerful speech, touched the heart of the Romans. His speech appealed to their emotion, and finally, he turned them through his tactics his own side. And finally, at the end, audience turned against the conspirators and seeking them for punishment. Extract number 5. And the first question of extract 5 is why are the wounds referred to as poor dumb mouths? If Brutus were Antony, what would have happened in every wound of Caesar? So the answer will be the wounds referred to as poor dumb mouths because Antony points out that Caesar is now dead, is unable to speak for himself. He shows these wounds to the Romans in the hope that they will recognize the violence with which conspirators murdered Caesar. Antony says ironically that if he were Brutus, then he would be able to stir up the Romans' spirit and make a fluent tongue for every wound of Caesar's that would make every stones of the road in Rome to rise up in revolt. Second one, what does Antony indirectly say to indicate that there should be a mutiny? Bring out the irony in his words in the extract. So the answer will be Antony indirectly indicates that there should be a mutiny to incite the crowd to violence. revealing the treachery of the killers. He extols the virtues of the honorable assassins and at the same time says ironically that he was not a good speaker, otherwise, he would have the stones of Rome to rise and revolt against the conspirators. Next, number three, at the end, how does the mob leave the scene? What do they plan to do? What does Antony, being satisfied, say after the departure of the mob? So the answer will be at the end, the anger of the mob is roused. They are excited to frenzy and seek to punish the murderers. They plan to revolt and to kill the traitors and assassins of Caesar. Antony, being satisfied, says that let the movement proceed. The spirit of trouble I have started you, now take your own course. Number four, where does Antony go at the end of the scene? Whom does he join there? What happens to Brutus and Cassius? So the answer will be Antony goes to meet Octavius and Lepidus, who had arrived to Rome at the end of the scene. He joins there with Octavius and Lepidus. Caesar's spirit takes revenge on both Brutus and Cassius, and finally, both of them commit suicides at the end of the play. Next question. Mention with examples any three of the tactics used by Antony to make the common people slaves of passion and resentment. So the answer will be three of the tactics used by Antony to make the common people slaves of passion and resentment are: first, Antony used the tactics of indirect accusations, genuine grief, and irony to incite his listeners by using the word honorable ironically for his listener to reflect his mood. Second, he spoke of the wounds which inflicted by the noble Brutus and the conspirators. Third point, he showed the will of Caesar and read for the audience and glorified the greatness of Caesar. And if you think the video is helpful to you, please subscribe the channel and like the video.